Welcome to Ghazali. Today we have with us a very special gentleman. I have been personally involved with a Gandhi project for the last few years, and I have been visiting many places where Gandhi lived. And when I go there, I get a very special feeling. I become at peace with myself when I am in Sabarmati or when I am in Sevagram, or that matter when I am in Mani Bhavan. But same thing happens to me when I am with Mr. Ramdas Bhatkal.
Thank you very much.
Ramdas Bhatkal is a motley crowd, is many persons in one, and what connects us is basically his love for Gandhi. Ramdas Bhatkal he's one of the founders of Popular Prakashan, and they have published some of the most important authors in Marathi. They also do publishing in English. He is a great lover of music, and he has been studying Gandhi.
Yes.
So, welcome to Ghazali.
Thank you very much.
Please tell us about how your love with Gandhi started.
Actually, I was fortunate in being born when Gandhi was alive. And though I was only 12 by the time he left us, he influenced us a great deal. Maybe partly because I was born in a building next to Manipur, and that building has its own charm. And even though Gandhi was not coming there after I was born, it had some impact. Much later, I did my PhD also in Manipur, and somehow though he was not present, his presence is always felt. There is that story about Martin Luther King Jr., who preferred to stay there and imbibe Gandhi rather than stay at the Taj.
Yeah, but talking about Martin Luther King, we have a little connection with Martin Luther King. When Martin Luther King came to India, Ravindra Kelekar was requested to take him around in Delhi. And I do not know whether Ravindra Kelekar also went around with him in Bombay, because Ravindra Kelekar was that time was working with Manipur. So tell us about what happened when that story of Martin Luther King.
No, this is told to me, and Manipur is very proud of it. And really there is something in Manipur, not just his pictures and the books, but some feeling that he exists. Not just the Dolls Museum, not just the large number of books, not his poetry and so on.
So Martin Luther King was made to stay at the Taj first.
Yes.
Yeah, and he refused to stay at the Taj and come and stay at Manipur.
Yes. And of course he must have imbibed something of Gandhi, obviously. No, I was born in the next building. I don't claim any such authority or such influence, but still it existed. But more than that, as I was mentioning this morning, Gandhi was on our wall in our little house. And the only other two portraits were Raja Ravi Verma's Saraswati and Lakshmi. Because we are a business house, Lakshmi was essential, and because we dealt with books, Saraswati was essential. But the third portrait was that of Gandhi, and this was prior to independence, when Gandhi was alive. So my father had almost deified him, maybe with a faint hope that by being there he will influence our thinking and our behavior. And maybe he did to some extent.
Yes.
So I used to call it radiation.
Okay.
It is not actually radiation. Everybody around was charged with Gandhi. All the visitors who would come to our place were either practicing khadi wearing congressmen, or they were working on constructive programs in a selfless way. So all that must have influenced me to some extent.
Yeah, like Martin Luther King, he has a very nice statement on Gandhi. He says, Christ gave us the direction and Gandhi gave us the tactics. That's what. And Martin Luther King was also another person who had Gandhi's picture in his office.
This is a slight diversion, but you are mentioning Christ and Gandhi. What I realize is that Christ, Buddha, Muhammad, they all preached love. But it was restricted to a few disciples of theirs. Then it spread over a period of time. Gandhi, in his lifetime, had not only to preach, practice, but direct and help so many hundreds and thousands or maybe millions. And that is a big difference.
Yeah, this is again, it reminds me because you compared Christ and Gandhi. Another very interesting comparison comes from Roma Roland.
Yes.
Roma Roland says that uh, Gandhi actually was even more influential than Christ because Christ never had to address such a large audience.
Exactly.
It was a small audience for Christ, and Gandhi, it was a huge audience. And then the other thing I say jokingly is Christ converted water into wine. Gandhi would do the other way around. He would convert wine into water. Okay, now coming to your first engagement with Gandhi, you did your PhD.
No, that came much later.
Much later,
The second
okay.
set of influences was when, as a publisher, I was publishing books in English.
Mhm.
And I must have published maybe 1,000 books on various subjects. And barring, of course, physics, chemistry, textbooks, or so on, almost every other book had to refer to Gandhi some way or the other. Because Gandhi was a part of India's life, and there is no aspect of normal behavior where Gandhi did not exist. So, whether it is a history of freedom movement, whether it is a book on agriculture, or whether it is a book on economics, or sociology, Gandhi has to be there. Not always favorably, but it has to be there. And so, and I was an editor-publisher in the sense I would read my books, discuss them with the authors. So in the process, I had done a great deal of work without being conscious that one day I'll do a PhD or a thesis on Gandhi. So I was full of Gandhi. I remember my son Satyajit, when he first came to my office as an adult and was passing by, looking at the books published by me. He suddenly stopped. And he said, Baba, there are at least 200 books which I must read. Not necessarily Gandhi, but they are important books. But I would say almost everyone had some reference to Gandhi.
Yeah, yeah. This I think I read another nice comment. They said Gandhi wrote about almost everything under the sun, except perhaps films, except cinema.
Yeah, because that you didn't see.
Yeah. So he wrote about everything.
Yeah. But strangely, you mentioned films. I must say this. Recently, one person presented at Mani Bhavan a program on Gandhi through films.
Okay.
And while Gandhi didn't see films, at least for 2 hours he would keep us engaged with songs about Gandhi. And mind you, this was during the British period. Because Gandhi died, of course some of the films were made later.
Yeah.
But in different ways Gandhi has been mentioned. I had not realized that. In so many film episodes, film songs, and of course many films were inspired by his teaching, like Achut Kanya and so on.
But I can't help making a little comment here that your son Satyajit has been definitely influenced by these 200 books, though he read them or not, because Satyameva Jayate, he has a big role.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So Satyameva Jayate, by the way, Satyajit he's a producer.
He's the director.
He's a director of that.
Yeah.
He's a director of that. Yeah, it is a great, great serial, and I think we all enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Now, tell us about what happened next.
So then, basically though in business, I have an academic bent of mine. I was planning to do research on various topics. The topics were as varied as to start with the administration of the city of Bombay, or the elections in America, or uniform civil code. And at various stages I did some little bit of work, but since I was busy with my business life, I didn't have time to pursue it objectively, or to go to a guide and so on and so forth. It was only after my elder son Harsha decided to take on the responsibility of the publishing house that I decided I must do my PhD.
At what age was this?
This was maybe at 60 or so.
Okay.
And by that time I had realized that everybody, Gandhi's contemporaries as well as people today, if they are unhappy with anything in India, they blame Gandhi. Maybe they credit Gandhi also, but more importantly they blame Gandhi. Because it is impossible for anyone to agree with everything that anyone said, including oneself.
Yeah.
But if they didn't like, say, the idea of having linguistic states, they would blame Gandhi. Those who like that state or those who don't like, whatever. Because Gandhi was everywhere and was a very easy punching bag. So everybody would criticize him. So I said, let me understand this. I mean, I know Gandhi's greatness, but then why don't these people see that? So I decided to take Gandhi and his adversaries as the topic of investigation.
Okay.
And I went to Dr. Usha Mehta, who was my professor for my MA. Hesitantly, I thought she'll poo-poo the idea because I was very old. But she encouraged me. She only said, you don't take such a wide subject. I was thinking of Gandhi and his adversaries from Lokmanya Tilak to Jawaharlal Nehru.
Okay.
She said, then you will only touch upon the point of difference but not go deeper in it.
Okay.
So you choose whom you want to pinpoint. And I then, after some thinking, thought of Savarkar and Ambedkar.
And Jinnah.
Jinnah came later as I was going along. Savarkar and Ambedkar, because the issue of religion and armed struggle, on these 2 points they differed greatly, and that is something very relevant today.
Since for our readers, everybody is not aware, our viewers, everybody is not aware of this, can you just, in short, so the differences between Gandhi and Savarkar, just in a few lines?
They are very obvious. As far as Savarkar was concerned, he strongly believed that it is only by armed struggle that we can win. And then, of course, he modified it by saying that unless other means are open. But frankly, he believed
in armed struggle. Yeah.
He believed in selective assassination. And he believed in the fact that maybe even with a few terrorist acts, it is possible to make the British frightened and go away.
And on the religious ground?
The religion ground came much later. Initially, he in fact thought that Hindus and Muslims fought together in 1857, and he eulogized that. But people believe that his experiences at the Andaman, when he was detained for about 12 years in Andaman and then also detained in India for a long period, that somehow made him very bitter against the Muslims.
So why bitter against the Muslims? What are the Muslims
he
to do
found
with
that
it?
the Muslims in the jail were trying to convert, the wardens would convert the Hindus. And this really irritated him.
Okay.
And in fact, later in his life, he very much wanted to reconvert those who converted to either Christianity or to Islam.
So first homecoming was started by Savarkar, or initiated by Ghar Wapasi program. Okay. Well, the second one. I mean, you talked about differences between Savarkar and Gandhi. Now we talk about Ambedkar and Gandhi.
With Ambedkar, the problem was he believed that he was the leader of the undisputed leader of the untouchables. For Gandhi, there was no distinction. Gandhi made no distinction to start with between touchables, untouchables, Brahmins. I mean, for him, Sarva Dharma Samabhava, Sarva Bhasha Samabhava, Sarva Jati Samabhava, Sarva Vansha Samabhava. For him, everybody was one. But partly because of Ambedkar's insistence and partly the encouragement Ambedkar got from the British government with their divide and rule policy, that became a big issue. And Gandhi to some extent succumbed by starting Harijan Sevak Sangh. Harijan Sevak Sangh did a lot of work for the Harijans, but frankly, in my opinion, Gandhi did more work through his constructive programs by ignoring this decision, because let's say prohibition or abstinence or khadi or many of the reforms which were a part of constructive work applied to everybody irrespective of their caste, and they benefited the so-called untouchables as much as the Savarnas. But Ambedkar wouldn't have it. He wanted himself to be the undisputed leader.
Of the,
And very briefly now, the point is that Savarkar wanted him to be the Hindu Hriday Samrat. Ambedkar wanted him to be the messiah of the Dalits. And Jinnah wanted to be the Muslim leader, unchallenged. He didn't want Congress to nominate a Muslim member, even though he was deserving. And all these three agreed on one thing, that it is for Gandhi to fight for India's freedom. He is the leader of India, but don't interfere in our
areas of... that reminds me of two things. I would just like to mention that. Since Gandhi's work for the untouchables is so great. Even if Gandhi is forgotten as a leader of the freedom struggle, of everything, still he was the first caste Hindu to pick up the broom and clean the toilet. That cannot be forgotten. He is
not only broom, that of course is an extreme end.
Yeah.
But frankly, for him, all work was his work.
Yeah.
He has been a carpenter, he has been a cobbler, he has been a printer, he has been a cook, he has been a server, waiter. There is nothing which he has not done regularly. It is not just for a photograph.
No.
You have put on a regular
basis. Yes.
So the fact, or not the fact, but the idea that this caste division is based on work, he falsified.
Yeah. I mean, that reminds me of another very interesting poem. I don't know it by heart in Marathi, but it is a poem by Kusumagraj. And it goes something like this. 3 statues in Bombay decide to come down and have a chat at Chowpatty in the middle of night. Ambedkar, Phule and Gandhi. तुम्हाला आठवते का?
No. Then all of them has following based on caste.
Yes.
Only Gandhi doesn't have. And then he says that I have only the wall, the government walls to back me because I am portrayed there, but only a portrait.
So माझ्या मागं फक्त सरकारी भिंत आहे. So that is a very moving poem. Yes. Okay, so you started with the PhD thesis. Another thing I connect you with Gandhi is Gandhi as a perpetual learner, a perpetual student. So at the age of 60, the idea of studying again and getting a degree or not a degree, but writing something itself is very, very
I will tell you a story about me and Satyajit. Satyajit was deeply influenced by Marxist thought, not by the Communist Party, but by Marxist ideas. And he would tell me, Baba, you are too much into Gandhi and so on. So I said, I fully agree, but there are 3 things. First, I am aware of it. And if it is a mistake, the first step in knowing a mistake is that knowing you are wrong.
Yeah.
So right or wrong, but I know that I am too much into Gandhi. The second thing is I am doing something about it.
Yeah.
And that is I am deliberately working on finding out what his adversaries have to say about it.
Yes.
And during the first 2 or 3 years of my study, I only tried to read Savarkar and Ambedkar and meet those who were supporters of these two, so that I fully understand what they have to say before I go to Gandhi.
Yes.
And the third thing is that after I have done this work for about 7 or 8 years, I am convinced that if one has to be too much into anyone, for most people in the world and certainly in India, it has to be Gandhi.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Well, so then you did complete your PhD.
Yeah.
And wrote this.
I would say unfortunately, because I had really no interest in getting that degree. My interest was in studying Gandhi. So I was going on merrily. But the university rules required me to complete it. And it would have been unfair for me to not attempt that. So finally I did it in 2007 when I was 72-year-old or something, when I got my PhD. But my work has not stopped. I keep on writing. Then I wrote at the same time in Marathi a book on Gandhi and his friends. While my PhD Mohan Maya. My PhD thesis was Gandhi and his adversaries and in English. This was Gandhi and his friends in Marathi. So in a way it was a very comprehensive engagement with Gandhi.
Okay, since I have read your book, and I would like you to tell us about one family. See, we are talking about South Africa in 1894.
94, yes.
94. And Gandhi is in South Africa. He has just come back from England. He is a dandy English lawyer hired by this Abdullah. And he is in South Africa, which is the ultimate of racism. There is apartheid. There is no mixing of different communities. And in this situation, describe Gandhi's household.
The first Gandhi came back in 1892. In 1893, he was sick of even the disparity between England and India in social terms, not so much economic terms. And he wanted to get away again. So he took the first opportunity and went to South Africa. There he was called by a Muslim trader. The first week was reasonable. I mean, the Muslim community welcomed him. But the white people there, in fact, he was called an unwelcome visitor.
Yes, absolutely.
And from that day, he has been reported almost on a daily basis. So we know everything about that happened. Then he went to Pretoria, and there he was to assist a Christian lawyer
Yes.
who was an amateur missionary. So there was that influence of Christianity, and there were others too. Now, he was hardly a 25-year-old
Yes.
barrister, but somehow he was deeply interested in religion, and he studied a great deal of that.
Everybody
And
tried to
initially
get him
for
into
the
the
first 3
Christian
years,
fold.
his family was not with him. His
No.
family was in India.
No, yes, that's
And
right.
there is one little story I have written called Kavach, that when that advocate Baker wants him to convert or to accept the Christ
Yes,
as the Savior, he has a turmoil. And in my story, what I have said is that he is of course disturbed. Shall I go to his church and pray with him? So finally he decides that I will go and pray because that doesn't make me a Christian.
No.
What I am inside, I am
Yeah,
inside.
exactly.
And he says that I have no right to give up my religion for 2 reasons. A, I have not studied it. So I must know what I am giving up.
Yeah.
B, with me my family will go. And what right do I have to change?
Yeah. Okay, now we don't have much time. So I think my last question to you will be, elaborate to us, to the viewers, what is this, what we call Gandhi's inner voice?
I think the point is that in South Africa it became a laboratory for him to have all these people from different religions, different sects, different languages, different parts of India together. And in doing that, he would consult his own conscience on every point, whatever is to be done. For example, when one of the resolutions said that in the name of God, we will not agree to this law.
Yeah.
So he immediately said, if you bring in God, then you have to, it's an oath, and you can't break it, come what may. And he followed that for years and years, went to jail, was in solitary imprisonment, and still he did it. So somewhere on the one hand, it was his conscience which he honed and tried to listen to it, while many of us don't. It is not audible to us, or if audible, we don't follow it. But he did that. The other aspect I realized is that it was a multidisciplinary approach to any aspect. So whether it was salt satyagraha or whether it was khadi or anything, one action had many, many implications. And he could immediately see all those with his great insight. Now instead of trying to convince on each point, sociologically, economically, politically, he would say my inner voice.
And that Nehru put it, that it was the inner voice or just not inner voice, it was a well thought of, intellectually satisfying statement. Thank you very much for being with us today. I think we definitely need Gandhi today. I myself was getting very disturbed with the kind of intolerance which is happening around and the kind of a politics of hate. I would conclude by saying that you may agree with Gandhi, you may not disagree with Gandhi, but one thing you cannot deny him, Gandhi's was a politics of love. And we need to reclaim that.
Sure.
Thank you.